2 pairs of frames, and then when I got into my car accident, somehow my glasses were just like, no. And I was so sad. I love my own. Yeah. And I went to go reorder my Oakleys, and they were just like, oh, we don't make those anymore. I'm just like, find them, because they're my favorite. I had those glasses when I was 3.
Go ahead and bring up Visual Studio. We're going to take a slight detour. So Visual Studio 2017.
What's so smooth? Yeah, no, that's what I'm looking at. I just wanted to test and see how it runs.
So how expensive is Visual Studio?
Free. And from what I've seen so far, it actually works on every machine. I'm going to do some major testing tomorrow on the different laptops to make sure that there's no issue. Now, Java is C-based, and a lot of them are C-based languages, which mean they're very close. So even if we do go back to Android Studio, if I can get it working on every laptop, this will be kind of the same programming constructs that you'll see there. So.
Question: where do I go
to download it? Let me see.
Visual Studio is not free at all.
Visual Studio, it's called Community.
I tried downloading it.
It's just Community?
Let me double check. I'm not sure if I ever downloaded it.
I have it open.
Visual Studio Community is free.
Is that the free one? Okay. Yeah, the professional I think costs you a lot of money.
It's $400.
Yeah. The reason I say I never have installed it is because I install Unity, the game development software, and it in the process downloads Visual Studio. So.
You're right. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, because about everything's seems like in the Microsoft world's going to Visual Studio. And Unity decided to use Visual Studio as their backbone. There's app development within Visual Studio, and but that's what I'm gonna test tomorrow to make sure that it works and so forth. I'm not giving up on Android Studio, but
say it works on my computer, my home computer.
That's just driving me nuts why it works on. And what even is crazier is the fact that on some of your computers it works and some of you didn't for that template. Okay. Now when this comes up, this is again IDE, Interactive Development Environment. We're going to do a File, New, and choose Project. When I installed Unity, I checked everything except I didn't check a couple of items because it breaks Python. I broke my Python at home and I still haven't got it fixed. When you choose the Python elements, then you're in Microsoft world. There's no going back to Anaconda. So you'll see a lot of different items here. Specifically, here is the Visual C#. And if you click the little arrow next to it, that'll expand it. And you see all the different things you can do with it. And we'll eventually get there, assuming the testing works out fine. You see there's Android there. You can develop Android apps for this. You can even develop iOS apps for this. We're not going to switch over in the other class unless we have major software issues with Xcode.
Why?
The what?
Why is it always raining?
Oh. I don't know.
That building's never going to get done.
And then, I bet it will. Because they were anticipating finishing up early. So they got, based upon their timeline, I think they got an extra 3 months or something like that they could play with. Yeah, they're ahead. Now the console app right here is one we want to choose. One that says .NET Framework.
Okay.
And you can give it a name if you want. This is going to be kind of just a testing one anyway. I'll have you write a program to turn in after a little bit. But now click OK.
Static building. Main Street.
Now this using up here, and this is kind of true of anything. We mentioned you only want to bring in what you want. I gave you the example, I think, of going to Walmart with a U-Haul. That's the same principle. This is only bringing in what it needs. So it's not bringing every element in. So it could be that if you want to do something different, you have to bring in different items. Down here is our name we gave it, Console App 2. That was the default one for mine. Yours probably says Console App 1.
Mine says Console App 2.
Does yours? Okay. It's interesting. I could have tested it on yours because when I was installing all the software, I was just doing some basic tests. And now the this class program, I think I talked about the objects. Remember, I think I did in this class. The Star Wars game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's what this is referring to. This is referring to an object. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense right here, but it is based upon object orientation, object-oriented programming. Now this right down here, we're going to talk more about these elements later, but from programming standpoint, you'll have a beginning curly brace and you'll have a closing curly brace. You can't just delete one of these, it'll break it. Now, we talked last time about variable types, where we have an integer, double, string, boolean, so forth. So I can declare those. If you type int and type num1, semicolon. int. Now as I'm typing, notice it pops up with that drop-down window there. That's called code completion. The idea is if you have a bad memory like me, if you remember the first 1 or 2 characters, it'll pop up a list and you can do a down arrow and find out which one you want. So that's, and the best IDEs have that available because they realize people can't remember every command, every error, everything in the language. And then I'll do a num2. Now this num1 and num2 is whatever you want to call them. So you don't even have to name them that. There are some restrictions on naming. You cannot start with a number for some reason. Like if I put a 3 in front of this, see it puts a little red squiggly underneath it? That means there's an issue there. And if you put your mouse over it, it says only assignment call blah 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 can be used as a statement. Not very descriptive. Sometimes it'll be meaningful what you see. Sometimes it will be useless. But you can't start with a number. I don't know if you can start with an underscore or not. Probably not. That's like a special reserved, usually. I usually always just put start with some kind of alphanumeric, and you can have numbers at the end like you see here. You cannot have spaces like you can in Microsoft Word. Has to be all together. If you want it to look like a space, you can put an underscore. Okay. So we got our 2 numbers here. And we're going to add them together. So I need to have another variable. And I'll call it sum. Now to add these 2 together, we first need to get a number from the user. Like if I'm gonna get the sum of two numbers. So I'm looking at him. Now I think I've mentioned this. What do I need to do?
What do you tell him?
Tell him, yeah. Hey, I'm gonna add together two numbers. So yeah, that'd be a good start. Now, how you tell somebody, and this won't be over the app side, but console write line, and then you say this program will add two numbers. You notice that I'm ending them with semicolons. Semicolons end that particular line of code. Now, you don't need them on every line. We'll talk about some places where you don't have them. Okay, so I'm looking at them. I'm saying this program will add two numbers. What's the next thing? Yeah, what numbers? So I need to ask him for the first number. So I'll say console.writeLine. You notice how it's popping up, and I can use my down arrow to pick whichever one I want and do a tab to do the code completion. You don't have to keep typing it all out. And this, please input first number. And I'll put a colon, but it's whatever you want it to say inside those quotes in there. And just like everything in programming, if you have a beginning quote, you have to have a closing quote. Now, I need to get retrieve the number. So I need to get the number back in. So I'm going to say num1 is equal to, and how you get that is with a console read line. But there's a problem with that after we type that in, I'll mention. You put a beginning parentheses, closing parentheses, and then your semicolon. It gives us an error. Now if I put my mouse over it, and see if I put my mouse over console, it pops up with that message. I put my mouse over the read line, and it tells me read line reads the next line of characters from the standard input stream. Characters, like A's, B's, and so forth. We know we're bringing in a number, but this brings in a string. Remember, a string means you can have letters, A, B, C, and so forth. So what we do is we have to convert it. So we do int.parse, and beginning parentheses there, and closing parentheses here. Now what this does, the console read line takes whatever you input on your line. When you press enter, it retrieves it to your program. This int parse, what that then does is it takes whatever you input and converts it to an integer. And then assigns it to num1. Don't worry overly about that. We're going to see there's going to be a different way we'll retrieve it from the apps, from like a text box in an app. Now for num2, I'm going to do an int parse console.readline. Then for my sum, I'm going to say sum is equal to num1 plus num2. This is an assignment operator. What this will do is it'll retrieve the values of num1 plus num2. It'll add it internally in the computer, and then it'll assign it to the variable called sum. Okay, so I say, okay, what did I forget? I forgot to put, please input second number. Okay, so I say What's your first number? He tells me 3. I then say, okay, what's your second number? He tells me 5. I go in my head and I add 3 plus 5 gives me 8. I'm storing it in a different brain cell, different variable. What do I then need to do with the result, do you think? If I say, what's the first number? You tell me 3. I store it in a brain cell, a variable. I ask, what's the second number? You tell me 5. I take that, I store it in another brain cell, another variable. I add it in my head. I think, okay, 3 plus 5 is 8. What then do I need to do? Yeah, I need to tell you. So I'm going to have another console write line where I give sum. There's some blank lines down here. Doesn't matter what programming language. Well, Python's a little bit different. But typically, blank lines, extra spaces, does not matter at all. They don't hurt anything. They're just cosmetic. If you don't like those blanks, you can press your delete and clean those out. Make sure you don't delete one of these closing curly braces or you'll break your program. Great questions on that so far. If I'm going too fast, holler. Let everybody finish typing that in. Okay. Now to run this, you do debug and you choose start without debugging. You go to your debug menu up here and start without debugging.
Does there build errors?
Does everybody get build errors?
No.
You got something wrong with your program then.
Well, I have built it.
Yeah, I have a build error.
Oh,
Cool. Alright, what's it here?
You don't have one though?
no, I can input the first and second
I'll
number.
take a change on the last successful. See the red
Um,
squiggly? That's yeah, that should be read.
Debug.
See the red squiggly?
Yeah.
There's something wrong there. You don't got a beginning parentheses after the read line. Or beginning parentheses, yeah. I have another one. You have another red squiggly?
Well, I still have it.
See, this is the point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, put a beginning parentheses.
There we go.
It's pretty cool though. I think it's worth it. I only got
num2 equals int dot parse console at read line and why are you here? Why are we still here? Why are we still here? Just to suffer. See, it's telling you expected semicolon. So see the line above it? You don't have semicolon. Got it. Alright. You get yours? It's on yep.
It takes a while. You know, programming wise, missing semicolon breaks the next line. Missing parentheses, it breaks it. So, is it working? No? Let me come look.
It looks the same as yours.
enter your first number.
Serious. You don't got semicolon in the line.
It told me to take it
7.
out.
Please enter the second number.
5.
Press any key to continue.
4. No, it's still
It's saying that it shouldn't be.
4.
It's not.
I inputted my first number. Console at read line.
Enter it.
6. And 2.
Well, I think it's
Whoa, it didn't have an extra.
It didn't add it for
leads.
It did for me.
Okay, so what did it in display? I did 4 plus 6. So, over here before.
Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe I wasn't looking there.
Opposing presence at
Debug.
before the
Oh yeah, it is working. I'm just.
Wow, it really doesn't matter for you.
You'd be surprised how many hours I spent sometimes, and it's a missing semicolon. If you don't have patience, programming is not for you. Because sometimes it just takes a long time to, and it takes practice. Nobody starts out good at writing code. You just have to do it over and over.
Yeah, my girl was a semicolon.
Yeah. So if we do debug, and we'll choose start without debugging, it'll pop up, say input first number, we'll put in 3. It'll say please input second number, we'll put in 5. And it comes back and tells us 8. It might have been nice if it had something before it said, okay, your answer is, but
Yeah.
Because that'd be like he tells me 3, he tells me 5, I add it, and I say 8.
Is that a
You know, I don't say the answer is 8.
Do we actually do that? But like, this is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how do we?
I want to do that.
If you want to do it on the same line, then what you do is you come here, you insert a line before the console write line sum, and you can say console dot write. The line is what goes down the next line.
Oh, okay.
So you can say the answer is.
There's a lot of brain.
Let's go on the window.
It is.
The answer.
Yo, man, the answer is.
And again, in everything, you have a beginning parentheses, you have to have a closing parentheses. You have a beginning quote, you have to have an ending quote. So they always go in pairs like that.
I can see me doing this like on my own time.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So then I do
Build it. Oh, I did put something.
debug, start without debugging. It says input first number, put 3, 5, and now it's a little bit more user friendly. It says the answer is 8.
Oh man, I should have put like giant something.
Yeah.
Now the ideal would be is if you can click this button that says start. And that'll appear like it runs the program. If I click start, comes up, it looks the same. You put in 3, you put 5, but then you press enter. It displays the answer real quick and exits out. So that's why you have to do a debug, start without debugging to get it to stop. Like that?
I'm gonna do this on my own time. You get home, you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Do you like that?
Yes, it's fun.
Yeah, I enjoy programming. Now we're going. No, I enjoy.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
No, it's I think it's fun because you don't really. It's kind of a solo type thing. I mean, you can work with in projects. A lot of it's you just sitting there coding. You know, you can't have somebody. You have somebody look at it. Like if you, and that's what we'll get more into this semester, having you work together in terms of pointing each other's errors out. And that's a challenge. I've had times where I've looked at trying to find an error in my program. I'll spend 2 hours trying to figure it out. And I take it to somebody else, say, I can't see it. Can you look at it? And they'd look at it in 5 minutes, say, oh, there's your problem right there. You should have a semicolon. Like, then you go back and start working. Sometimes you just need that fresh pair of eyes.
Don't you wish they had like Grammarly for coding?
That would be nice. I installed that by accident, and I love it. I think I'm gonna buy the regular package because when you start typing in there, it was it
My mom
green?
uses- my mom uses Grammarly for her dissertation.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm kind of an idiot when it comes to grammar and so forth. So it's just pointed out so much, and it's made people think I'm a lot more intelligent than I am when I send emails or not emails, but browser stuff. There's got to be a way to do it on email too.
Yeah,
But
I think it'll do it.
if you buy the package,
I can't
Yeah.
sign it as JC.
I got the free package.
Professor Hayes.
Mhm.
your students. Gentleman, right? He left his,
Oh yeah, he did.
he left his account open.
Uh-huh.
So if that was me right now, I could open all these spam folders.
Oh.
I could mess with him so bad.
Yeah, don't do that. So now we'll do a file close solution. And we're going to do a file, and we'll choose new project again.
You have file what?
You do a file close solution first, and then do a file, new, and then project. File, new project. This is always how you'll start a new project.
Console app 3.
Console app again, the .NET framework. By the way, this same technology you see here, assuming it works, is what we're going to use to build apps. You could also in another class build it websites. Like if you want to have a website that was interactive, and so forth, you can use this. Visual Studio is wonderful. Okay, so I'll choose console app. I'm gonna give it a name this time. I'm gonna call it Simple Interest. It doesn't matter. Just as long as you remember your name, you're fine. And mine's under Documents, so keep a mental note of where it's stored at. And then we'll click OK.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Alright, so.
Why?
New
Getting some copyright
What's that?
music here.
It's but
Oh, okay.
what are we calling it?
Simple Interest.
No copyright.
It's still .NET framework.
Correct.
Or console app.
Right. Now, the formula is I is equal to PRT.
No.
I think we talked about that in some class.
Yeah.
I think it was the iOS class, wasn't it? Where interest is equal to principal times rate times time. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a program to calculate that. We'll ask him for all the information. In terms of an app, you would get the P, R, and T from text fields that they input. They click here, they input a number, they click here, they input a number, they click here, they input a number. They click the button, it'll go off and do the same calculation that we're going to do here and display it or do something with it on your app. So what do I need to do first? Set of variables. Now I'm going to type INT, or are they INT? No. These can have decimals, can't they? So I'll say double. Now the variables I need are I, P, R, and T. Now notice that I put them all on the same line, didn't I? You can do that. You can declare multiple variables on the same line. You just have to separate them with commas. Or you can put them on separate ones. It doesn't go any faster if you put them all in a single line. It's just kind of a view. If you got 100 variables declared, that's 100 lines of code, right? You print that off, you got 4 or 5 pages of just your variable declaration. So it's best to put them on a single line like that. Now we need to get principal from the person, but first maybe I ought to tell them what the program does. So I'll do a console.writeLine, and I'll say this program calculates interest. Then my next line, maybe I would say console.writeLine, input principal. I don't know how to spell it. I think that's right. No, that's the guy you go to if you're in trouble, or a girl, or principal like that.
Principal is first. Principal.
It's PLE.
PLE, okay. So I'm saying input principal. So then I'm going to say P is equal to, now remember how we did an int.parse before? We're no longer dealing with an integer. So what do you think we'd put? What do you think it would put? Before we used int parse to convert to an integer. But this is an integer. Double dot parse?
Sure.
So here, you do double dot parse. And now I'm going to do my console dot readline. Then I'll do my console.writeLine. And I'm going to say input the next item, which was the rate. And then I'll say R is equal to double dot parse console.readline. Keep your eye out for the red squigglies. When you get down to the line, if you have a red squiggly, that means you forgot something. Now you notice some of these have green squigglies. Like up here, I and T on mine still have the green squiggly. If you put your mouse over it, it'll say the variable T is declared but never used. The green means, hey, there's a potential problem here, but it's not a serious one. It's not going to stop your program from running. And then I need to bring in console.writeLine, input time. And we say T is equal to double dot parse console dot readline. Now I didn't say it, but this is no different than what you do in real life. I come up to Heather, I say, okay, I want to calculate interest, and then I'd ask her, what's principal? She tells me $1,000.50. Then I'd say, okay, what's the rate? And she tells me it's 3%, it's 0.03. And then I say, okay, what's the time? And she tells me, okay, time, I'm gonna leave it in there for 10 years. So I've stored all those, well, I can't remember what I even said, but in theory, I've stored those 3 items in brain cells, in variables. So now, in my brain, I'm going to sit here and calculate that, not that I can do any kind of decimals in my head. I'd store it in another variable, and then I would tell her the answer. So our next line of code, we're going to say interest is equal to P. Now, if you put PRT right next to each other like that, like you would in algebra, it doesn't work. You have to indicate multiplication. And how we do multiplication in programming is with the asterisk. Thing about Visual Studio is it will automatically kind of reformat your code so it looks pleasing to the eye. Technically, you don't need those spaces in there, but it puts it there for cosmetic reasons. Okay, so I've calculated it, I put it into I, so now I need to write out the result. Right, I'll do a write first, and I'll say the interest is, and then I'll say console.writeLine, and I'll print off I. So now if I do my debug, and I click the Start Without Debugging, It'll come up and say input principal. So I put in 1,050 cents. I think that's what I used in my example. Press enter on it. It says input rate. I put in 0.03. Now I'm asking for it in decimal form, so that might actually be something I'd put in my instructions. Input rate, and then I'd say in decimal form. Because otherwise, what might some people put? Just 3? Yeah, they might just put 3, right? Now I think, oh, well, they want 3%, so I'll put 3. And when my program is wanting 0.03. So those are design aspects you have to think about. Press enter on that. It says input time, and I forget how many years I said, but let's say 5 years. And then press enter. And that would be your interest. If you put $1,000, 50 cents in, you at 3%, you live it for 5 years, you would get additional $150.75 or 8 cents.
I did something wrong because it says the interest is
You put quotes around your eye.
I.
So
the quotation pretty much tell the code to say that in the quotes.
Right. The quotes means just whatever's inside quotes literally gets written out to the screen. If you don't have the quotes there, then it thinks it's a variable, and it goes out and looks for the value of the variable and prints it.
The interest is I.
It's correct. That's correct. You turn that in, it's just like, I can't believe we took points off for it. It's correct.
It sounds like you're the interest. So,
Yeah. So your interest is me, all right? So we're gonna go out.
I am your interest.
I am everything you want.
Now let me try to find a different formula, and I'll have you write it yourself. Try to find something that isn't too bizarre.
So you want us to close this solution?
You can close that, yes. And
Do you want to save it?
yeah, go ahead and save it. That way you can open up and refer to it later on if you want.
I didn't say
If you copy it to your flash drive at the end of class.
should I save this?
You
I figured out just to take a picture of the screen.
that's even good too. But if you do a file and you say save all,
So you file save all.
right, that'll save everything. Now I want you to go through, and I don't know what, it's been so long since I've had physics, I couldn't tell you. Momentum, whatever that is, mass times velocity. I want you to write a program to calculate momentum.
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 Simple momentum.
As you do it, if you have questions, problems, then holler at me. I'm just going to be of help.
Are you using double this time?
Mass. Mass can have decimals, can it? Yeah, I would use doubles. That's part of when you're designing a program, you have to think that is it going to have decimals or not? And then use integer or double it. Most of the time in programming, when people would ask me to do something, I didn't understand everything they were saying. I was mainly looking for the formula or the process they use. That's why I would program in. This is a computer science major. I took 2 accounting classes, but I I was not a county wizard. I'm so old. You said you take pictures, and I'm envisioning doing a screenshot, saving it to Word, saving it to your flash drive or something like that. And then I'm seeing him looking at his phone, and I realize what you meant.
Yeah, I probably should have done that.
I was just gonna text my mom that I finally learned how to program at least a little. Are you talking about?
Alright. You do like
Now think about it. You're coming up to somebody, and you just said, okay, I'm going to calculate momentum. So what's your next thing you're going to say to that person? What's your maps?
First raise. It says a console does not exist in this context.
Oh no. No, wait.
Oh, it's not there. What's this one here?
I'm going to start over. Save all. Okay, so I'll do close. Okay. Now choose a file new. Project. And let's see. Let's look up here. You're in right one. That framework. Give it a different name. Put 2 on the end of it or something. Okay, now click at that brace there. Press enter.
Got it. Yes.
I'm gonna go back. Need for reference. Got it.
What do you want us to have it say in the beginning? This is what comment.
What?
This is your comment.
Oh, just whatever. I don't even know what momentum is. So.
It's like,
Momentum is mass
Velocity.
times velocity.
well, we can see that.
No,
It's like
I know what it
how fast you're going and how fast it will take you to stop.
I've had physics for 30 years, 35 years. I think why it wasn't coming up is you did not choose the right project type. That's why I had to start over from scratch. Console write line doesn't exist in those other contexts. Like if you're developing an app, there is no console write line because there's no console on an app. Now I'm going to figure out this Friday. That's one of my things on my list. How to print to the printer. So I can get that set up on all of your printers. So if you want to print off a paper copy of your code, then you can. He gave me the IP address. But to be honest, I've never set up a printer on a computer via the IP address. So I've got a learning process. too. I'll have a book bag like that. That's so many places that I've lost stuff before.
Yeah, well,
And then I'll find it
one's-
like a month later, it's in the like this.
This one's weird though, like, this zipper goes in here, but this zipper also goes in there, but not in the same spot, it's another pocket behind that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is there so many zippers?
Used to be a lot easier. Just one big area, just and then in front.
My backpack actually, I think super sign.
And I keep losing my flash drive because I keep putting it in the pocket next to the laptop because that's where I leave it. And then I forget that I put it.
Well, I need to break out of the habit of using a flash drive.
I only use my flash drive for
There's so many like OneDrive and all those that you don't need it.
Yeah.
You just sign on to OneDrive and you can download all your files you need and so forth. I guess in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what am I doing if the internet's down? I wouldn't have anything then. I'm just.
Yeah. What happens if the cloud goes down?
Yeah.
You know how many parents are gonna be so angry if the cloud ever crashes?
They got everything stored there?
Yeah, I've got like 9,000 pictures of my
Oh, you do?
on the cloud. Because my phone will get full, so I'll just send them all to the cloud and then just delete them from my phone.
Is velocity like? Trying to see if this will work.
Is it velocity that has direction associated with it?
Yes, velocity would be
Right.
if I threw something at you.
That's velocity at a certain right. Okay.
Or no, isn't velocity like the air and all that stuff? Hey, nerdy kid. You're the one that keeps correcting me.
He's
Isn't
good.
velocity the one like the air and stuff?
Is velocity like the speed at which you move?
No,
Yeah.
that's momentum.
How fast it is going is the velocity. So
That's
5 miles an hour
Yes,
is the velocity.
I thought velocity had direction with it too.
Yeah.
S is the speed is where it's just how fast you're going along.
That's not that. I don't know. I don't take physics.
Momentum's
so
the
we're
quantity
going
of
to-
motion of a moving
I
body.
thought Kyle
Motion
Green
is
not
a
too long
product
ago.
of its mass.
We covered velocity.
So velocity is just the speed that it's moving, and momentum also calculates the mass that's going.
Or since it's behind the.
Well, you need to declare it first. So up above that line, press enter, and you'll do double space P. Double is telling it you declare a variable that has a number of decimals, and then the P is the name, and then you do your sum. Now you could, while you're at it, go ahead and do your comma after the P and put your other variables, M and B.
P. Cool. Weight, mass times.
You know, if you get really good at computer programming, you can just make a bunch of programs that you're going to need for school, and then just never actually have one.
Yeah. That's it. You do take classes, and if you got something that's just repetitive that you're doing over and over, you're right. You write a program for it, you can type in your numbers, and it does all the work for you.
I used to have batch files in my
Okay.
my desktop that would like take me to different places to do what it's kind of like so
I haven't worked with DOS batch in a long time. I never was good at it. Some people were very good. They could pass in parameters to it, and I never got that one.
I am very basic that stuff.
It still's out there. You can still create batch files on these and run them.
But I use like Notepad++.
Yeah.
Unless I use DDoS.
And just generally going into a programming degree, you can actually make some pretty good money. 15 years ago when I decided to go into education, I took a $21,000 pay cut. I know that sounds insane, but I love teaching. And I wasn't very aggressive on salaries back then. And I was making, I think, about $61,000. And the guy I worked with, the same job as me, he was aggressive, kept moving jobs. And he went to work for a company for $95,000. If he told me he was making $120,000 now, it would not surprise me. So
I've got a friend who's a web developer, and he completely taught himself through YouTube and like internet. Like you can basically all these classes that you can take online for free and stuff. And he makes like $70,000.
yeah,
And he sits at home, and I'm like, goals. That's lazy.
yeah. There's you go out there and there's a lot of telecommuting jobs. They look for remote people. Dice.com has that. I think I showed you that website, didn't I?
Yeah, that's how his is. Him and my sister-in-law used to move everywhere. Just, we don't feel like being here anymore. So they would just up and move.
Yeah.
She took a 1.5 year vacation to Michigan while I was living there. I'm just like, what are you even doing? She's like, I'm on vacation. I'm just like, we've been here for over a year. How are you on vacation still? That's how. Because he would work for about 6 hours a day. Right in the morning, he'd get up early, do it, knock everything out, still in bed, and then just, yeah.
Yeah, there's just such a shortage across the board with IT. You gotta be willing to move though. That's the thing about it. You wouldn't necessarily be in your.
He's one of those like really hipster oriented people, so he's very creative. It's all about.
Why not you? Me? I don't know. Like, why are you looking at me?
She get a beating once you grow out your hair. She get a beating once you grow out your hair.
Why?
This work.
Because
Everyone's like, I can't have the momentum. I'd rather be.
It could be emo or scene. Isn't scene still a thing?
I don't think so.
No, not anymore. That's for old people.
Now, what I would recommend on your programming here
Yes.
is to type each line. What you can do though, just like any other Windows package, you can edit it, copy it, and paste it. So you highlight it, Control C, go to your new location, Control V, and then you just change a couple of things, and boom, you're done. But if you're sitting there typing it over and over at first, then you see minutes in. How did I declare an integer? How did I declare a double? And so forth. Now, once you get that comfort level down, then definitely use your edit copy to do it. It just makes your coding so much faster.
Didn't even think
So how long have you been doing this?
Programming?
Yeah.
Since 1989.
So over 26 years.
26 years?
Over that. Because, well, 92 and maybe 26 years.
that. Serious.
Yeah.
7 years.
That was bad at first. I went to, did I talk about the history of that? Going to Fort Scott, taking COBOL?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah. And so, nobody starts out as a brilliant programmer and so forth. Just the more you write, the better you get. If you sat there and wrote every one of those, program for each one of those formulas and that page I found, wherever it is, you'd find at the end it's just boom, boom, you're second nature. You write
See,
it.
how would you go about doing that? Like, some of those get pretty complicated.
We'll take a look at that centripetal pedal.
Centripetal is acceleration.
Acceleration, whatever that is. We'll take a look at that next, because you're right, that is more complex, isn't it?
There's fractions involved.
There's a fraction involved there, and there's a square. It's really not as challenging as you think.
I love fractions, but I don't even like doing fractions on paper when I'm on code.
Coding is super easy. Now, programming it so it gives you a fraction answer, that's more challenging. We're not going to get into that more mathematical programming.
Well, you're not actually supposed to write a math problem in a fractional answer. You're supposed to do it in decimals.
Right. So that works out well anyway.
Liam, I just have a question. Like, I thought about this the other night. Why is it whenever we have one pillow, it's like way too low, but then we have another pillow, it's like way too high?
It's because you need to just get one thick pillow.
I don't have that issue.
Sorry, I'm poor.
I
sleep on
I
cardboard.
overpaid for my pillow. Not the my pillow. I didn't get that.
Oh, you get one pillow?
We're going to take a look at C acceleration. So we're going to program this formula right here, V squared over R. So I'm going to save all. Now you can do a file save all. There's also a button here that has two little disks. If you click that, that also does a save all. Probably if you do a closed solution, it'll also ask you if you want to save it. So there's a few ways.
When it says save out the S, does that let you choose the destination?
I wouldn't do that. And I'll talk more about why. You'd think it would work right, but it doesn't. It like breaks your previous program.
I wanted to save it to my flash drive.
I'll show you how to do that. So we'll do a file new, and choose project, and make sure you choose the console.app.net framework one. Yeah. And what in the world am I finding? C acceleration. I think it'll allow you to put spaces down there. Does it?
I actually spelled San out.
And really, what that's for is just so you can identify it later on. Now, what variables do you think we want to declare?
A, V, and R.
A, V, and R. So I'm going to come here. I don't know much about this, but I'm pretty sure, like you indicated, there's decimals. So it should be what? Doubles. So I'll come here and I'll put double and no memory. You told me A, V, and R. Now I think there is one letter you can't use. I think it's E. E is like a system for error. And you do get an error, I think, if you declare it as E. But you don't have to use one letter. If I wanted to type this out, that I don't know what R is. Rate. V is velocity, I'm sure.
We also need one for C.
So you could use VEL. You don't have to have one letter variables. It's bad to actually have one letter variables. I could spell out velocity. What did you say R was? Or did you? Rate? Okay. And what's A? Acceleration. I'm going to, I was trying to think how to spell it. I think that's close. Okay, so then in my program, I want to prompt them. Double dot right line. What in the world am I doing? Console dot right line. No, that's a if I didn't know your names, and I'm getting there. Zarius is, let's say I didn't know his name. He's S1, he's S2, S3, S4. Now, these sub ones you see there, the S indicates you're all students. The subs indicate you're different. So this is specifically acceleration to the, So you might have A sub F for something else, A sub G, different accelerations. They're all accelerations, but they're applying something else. Okay, so console right line, I'll say this program calculates acceleration. Even better. Now I need to ask him to input acceleration. So I'll say console.writeLine. And again, as that's popping up, type your tab at some point to do a code completion. It simplifies the coding. It makes it everything uppercase, or the case it should be. And then I'll say input acceleration.
They're trying to find the acceleration.
You're 100% correct. Input velocity. Let's try it again.
No, that's what I had to do. I was trying to put in the momentum for maybe even find that.
Yeah. So then we got velocity is equal to double dot parse. And I'm going to have console dot readline.
Are you doing not acceleration, but velocity?
Right. Acceleration is what we're calculating. Console write line. And I'll say input rate. And I'll say rate is equal to double dot parse. Console dot readline. Okay, so I'm coming up to somebody. I said, okay, I want to calculate acceleration, and I ask, what's velocity? Okay, they give me an answer. They say, okay, velocity is 30. I take that, I store that in my brain cell or a variable. I then come up to the next, or I come up to the same person, and then say, okay, what's the rate? They tell me the rate. I take that, I store it in a brain cell. So that's where we're at. So now what do I need to do?
A equals B times Y.
Yeah, calculate it, right? Now, acceleration is pretty wordy, isn't it? As you start typing ACC, you notice what pops up. It says acceleration. So you can just simply do a tab to have it finish the typing for you. If you're kind of lazy like me, you'll love that feature because then you don't have to sit there and type it all out. Now our formula was v squared divided by r. And I have to remember how to do squared. There's one way that you can do it, but I want to know the basic way. I do velocity, and it's either char2 or let me try that. Okay, I like that.
It's a
Char2. Some programming languages are asterisk asterisk. Some you have to do a math.pow to do it. And what am I dividing by? Rate? Yeah, it didn't like something. Does not like caret. Let me try to put asterisk asterisk. Does not like that. Okay. It's the third way. If I type math.pow, then I can put in my velocity, comma, 2. This is a library that somebody has written to do powers, exponents. And you type math.pow, beginning parentheses, you put your variable you're working with, which was our case velocity, comma, what power you want to raise it to, which is 2, and then closing parentheses. What you'll find is that every programming language is a different way to do power. Some do carets, some do 2 asterisks, some do this. I can never remember, and I'll confuse this the entire semester because I'm teaching Python, C++, and so I'll be mixing the code together. So the nice part is it tells me I'm wrong. And so then I know, okay, it's not that one, it's another one, and so forth. Once you learn the basic programming constructs, you can program in any language. That's the beauty of programming. Everybody get to that point? Okay. So now what do I need to do? Right. So I need to write it out. So I'll say console.write. The acceleration is right.
Without quotes.
Yeah, without quotes. So then if I run that, do a debug and start without debugging, or you notice it says Control F5. If you have good memory, simply do Control F5. You don't have to do your mouse to choose that. So put 200 in for velocity, input rate, I don't know, 32.5, like that, I don't know. And it comes up and tells me my acceleration is 1,230 point, a lot of decimal places. We'll eventually get around to figuring out how to round it, but for now we'll just leave it as is. Questions on that one? Everybody get that? Heather, you look like you're good? Okay. Look like you're looking for an error. So now this I'll have you turn in. So go ahead and calculate this one right here. Assume that's a W. I know it's not. It's a Greek letter. But assuming it's a W. And how you do this negative that's in front of it is you do -1 times. So -1 asterisk. So we'll go ahead and program in that second formula there.
In the same one.
Um,
A new project.
Probably. Well, it's up to you. You'd have to ask for a new variable, right?
Yeah.
W?
W still the velocity.
Is it? I don't know. I just like to pick on, I like chemistry formulas, physics formulas, just because they're easy to show programming concepts.
So, okay, will we put the negative asterisk in front or behind the W?
You would put, like, assuming my variable names were W, R, and A, you would have your A is equal to -1 times W squared, that's where you do your math, pow, squared like that, times R.
So not divide. Oh, okay, I see.
Not that way.
Thank you.
Okay, no, but everything is the same.
Yeah, you didn't put a number in. Yeah, go ahead and run it again.
It's not.
And then put in 300 or something. Well, you're not locked this one.
It's like, I know, it'll work. Because it worked the first time, then I'll let it
You probably make that mistake twice a week.
And I'm on, yeah.
Yeah, I assume it's on always, so I'm sitting there, and
Yeah.
then I'm wondering what I screwed up, because I'll be in Excel, and it's just like a page up and page down. I was like, oh my god, what have I just done?
We're into the we're doing some It's changing. Does? How is it making it worse for myself? You accuse me?
Take the victim card.
Is that an asterisk or a word plus?
Yeah,
That's an asterisk. Asterisk is how you do multiplication.
Yeah.
Oops, I better go create the Dropbox.
Did you already do it? Or you just think you did?
Uh-huh.
You said to deal with the negative.
You would have an actual -1,
Oh, wait.
like that.
You said this was on our assignment.
Right. This is what you're going to be turning in.
Let me see.
Is that?
So, we put A equals -1 plus now.
No, not plus, times.
Times.
Then you do your math.pow, and then W, comma 2, because that's your W squared. And then times your R.
So if you want us to just do another project.
It's up to you. If you want to change your existing one, that's fine.
Okay, what's the actual
Formula?
formula?
A is equal to negative W squared R.
All my numbers are mostly. Yeah, I don't know. They're all negatives right now. Velocity is 18. Yeah, you just get.
It'd always be negative.
They're all gonna be negative.
Yeah, because with the way the formula is, when you square something, it's always positive. And assuming rate is positive, which it doesn't have to be. I think if it's a vector, it can be going reverse.
Okay.
So you can have negative, I think. But yeah, negative answer is normal.
what I always do.
Now, if you put a negative 12 for the rate, you're going to see it's positive. This is central
Centripetal acceleration.
pedal acceleration. Now I'll show you how to upload it here in a minute. If you're already done.
I don't see it. Wait. It's just saved my device. It's in users.
Usually it's like in a Visual Studio folder.
Yeah, I tried to. Here it is. It's in Kali Student Source Repos in here. And all my other ones are documents. All I did was hit save all. I didn't do anything.
That's bizarre.
I changed to save it to the desktop.
That's a good idea.
It's so easy, and it's also so easy for me to clean off later on.
Did you read our work from 2 days ago?
I don't get
Or not?
taken another class.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yesterday.
No, not yet.
No.
I do most of my grading on the weekends
What is that?
at first. Until I get all the software issues figured out. I think Android Studio is the last one that's causing me major headaches. There's if I can say it, Xamarin that's built in with this, and it's a good product. It's used. It was a commercial product before Microsoft bought them out, and it's used for building apps for not only Android but also iOS. And when I went to Dice.com and looked, there's more job opportunities for people using that product than there is for Android Studio. So assuming I'm going to test it tomorrow, I'm going to go through a series of tests. So I will make sure it doesn't break in the middle of class like that. If it looks good, we're going to switch over. Now both of them will kind of use the same programming language, so it really doesn't matter. We're not like going down a path that wouldn't help either way. Yeah,
there's tons you can create apps with. I think there's one for NetBeans too. There's one for Eclipse, but I've used Eclipse. It's horrible. That's so hard to work with. Of course, there's a reason why it's so hard to work with, because you can do anything under the sun. It's such you can integrate it and bring in add-ins. And although we'll stick with Visual Studio for a while, just to get everybody's programming concepts down. So we got like if statement, while, for loop.
The if statement. I kept on typing I and then kept on putting if. I don't want if.
I'll give you a little bit of time next class to finish this up, but I want to show you how to save it and how to copy it to your flash drive so you can save it off so you won't have to redo it next time, what you've done. And this is also how you'll submit it if you're already done. Now you have to know where you saved it at. I assumed everybody's would be the same as mine, but yours saved in a weird location. If you do a file, one way is if you just do a file save as. You'll see, oh, that's weird. Mine's saving it there now too. Kali instructor source repos.
Okay, just scroll down on the side, and you just save it to your.
No, you don't want to do that. No. But we don't want to save as. We don't actually want to click OK there. That's telling us the directory. Okay. So then we'll do a close. So close solution. If it asks you to save, go ahead and save whatever you got. Now if we bring up File Explorer and you go to that same location. I have no memory. What did I say? Okay, if I right click on the File Explorer and go to Pictures, and now go to your I think it was Documents, wasn't it? No memory, no memory. File. I'm going to open it back up. Should be a recent here. There are recent projects and solutions. Users, Kali, instructor, documents. And then C acceleration. Mine is right here. That C users and so forth. You see how it says C acceleration? Everybody locate theirs? If you right click on it, you can say send to compressed zip folder. File not found or no read permission. That's nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to that instructor thing so I can get that folder out.
I'm under my documents.
Oh, never mind. I found it. Oh, I don't have permission to get into this.
I'm an admin.
I'm getting that too.
If I right click it, and actually let's just make it easy since we're out of time. Open up your document again, or your project. If you do a file and you choose recent projects and solutions and open it back up, edit your code, copy it like that. Copy it, put it into a Word document, upload to Word document. Next time we'll actually follow your wise advice to save it to the desktop to begin with. Now in Visual Studio, you were asking about the file save as. I wish there was a way to do this. There is no file save as solution. So when you do a file save as, it just saves that single file. It doesn't save the entire solution. That's why if you think you got a program that you love and is working great and you want to save it as a different name, when you do that file save as, then parts of it are still pointing out to the old directory, and it causes massive headaches.
Are you trying to get into that centripetal, the instructor folder?
Right.
I just figured out how to do it. If you go to the Visual Studio, like where it shows the recent deals,
Uh huh.
if you right click it, you can copy the path. Whenever you go to the
Oh, right here. You copy the.
no, whenever you open Visual Studio and ask,
Oh, and then do that.
yeah, you can copy the path and then paste it in File Explorer, and all you have to do is
It'll take you directly there.
yeah, it'll
Okay.
delete. If you delete the last part of it, it won't open it. It'll
Uh huh.
just take you to that folder.
Oh, okay.